So today we're looking at adding and subtracting polynomials. We've already covered adding, but we're going to look at the subtracting piece, and we're putting it together. So that's what's adding and subtracting. Let's take a look at the warm up for today, and I'll go ahead and blow this up. Guys, you're just combining like terms. So it says simplify each expression. This first one we got negative 6k plus 7k. You'll just go ahead and combine your like terms, and you'll do the same thing for questions 2, 3, and 4. Let's take a look at our learning target and success criteria. We are learning how to add and subtract polynomial expressions. And the success criteria is I can identify like terms, I can add like terms, I can subtract like terms, and I can write solutions in standard form. Guys, go ahead and pause the video at this time. Make sure that you copy down the learning target and success criteria in your open and closing sheet. And we're still on the foldable. So this time we're actually looking at the subtracting polynomials section of the foldable. Um, I actually want you guys to change the writing here. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out so I can draw on here. It says change subtract. So we're going to literally scratch this out. Now we're going to write our own rules. So it really the thing that we want to do is the rule we want to actually write down or use is distribute the negative. Okay. Distribute a negative sign. And then the only other thing we need to do is say we want to combine like terms. So once you distribute a negative, then you're going to combine like terms. And that's pretty much the rules for subtracting. And so that's why I'm telling you guys to go ahead and I do apologize, my handwriting is a little sloppy. But again, you're on this foldable flap, you're going to cross out what it says for the rule, and you're going to write your new one, and it's going to say distribute a negative and then combine like terms. So here's the first example we have. We have 3x squared plus 4x minus 6x squared plus x. Here is my negative sign here, and we're going to use distributive property to distribute this negative. So just to cover integer rules of multiplication, remember that a negative times a negative is always going to equal a positive. A negative times a positive is going to equal a negative. A positive times a negative is going to equal a negative. And then two positives times each other will equal a positive. So again, these are the integer rules of multiplication. And if you don't know these rules, I advise that you write this down on your graphic organizer on your foldable. You can put it at the bottom of your foldable where it says operations with operations with polynomials, and you can just draw this little box. But again, remember the biggest thing is that two negatives multiplied together is going to give you a positive. Okay. Anytime you multiply a negative and a positive, or positive and negative will be negative. All right, so let's go back to solving this problem. Again, I'm going to distribute the negative. So a negative times a positive. Remember that if there's nothing here, it's an understood one. So a negative times a positive, I'm going to get a negative 6x squared. Then a negative times a positive again will give me another negative. So this will give me a negative x. And if you want to put a 1 in front of it, you are welcome to do so. It's understood 1 in front. I didn't do anything to this left-hand side, so all I'm doing over here is bringing this piece down. So we have 3x squared plus 4x. Once you guys distribute a negative, you can drop all the parentheses, okay? From here, we are going to, let me change the color. We're going to combine our like terms. So let's take a look and see what terms do we have alike. You have 3x squared, and then you have negative 6x squared. These are like terms. And then you guys have a 4x and a negative 1x. Again, please remember that everything has to be in standard form. And I will write this on the outside of my foldable because regardless of whether you add, subtracting, or multiplying polynomials, everything has to be in standard form. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and combine my like terms. So we have 3 minus 6. This is gonna give me a negative 3x. Remember that it's still to the second power, so I'm gonna leave it that way. And then I have 4x minus 1x. So 4 minus 1 is gonna give me a positive, so plus 3x. And that's it. This is already in standard form, so there's nothing else to do to this example. Okay, let's take a look at the next example. Change my color again. So let's look at the second example, and it's the last example we have on the foldable. We have 5x squared minus 8 minus 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. So remember, we're following the rule of distribute a negative and then combine like terms. So I'm going to distribute this negative 1 to each of these pieces on the right-hand side. And because I'm not doing anything to this left-hand side, I'm just bringing it down, okay? So I'm left with 5x squared on the left because I didn't do anything to it, minus 8. Now, remember that it's an understood 1 here, so this is a negative 1. So negative 1 times a positive 2 is going to give me a negative 2x squared. A negative 1 times a negative 3. Remember, two negatives together give you a positive. So a negative times a negative make this a positive 3x. And then finally, we have a negative times a positive, which will give me a negative again. And this is negative 1 times a positive 1, which will give me a negative 1. Okay, so now I went ahead and did the first part, which is distribute my negative. Now I need to, and I forgot my x squared here, guys. I apologize. Let me write that a little bit neater because that's hard to read. It's supposed to be to the second power. Okay, so now that I distribute the negative. Okay, so we're gonna combine our like terms. In this case, some reason my draw tool keep freezing. In this case, we have x squares that are alike. Okay, and then we have, I don't know why this keep freezing. Then we have our constants that we can combine, which is negative 8 and negative 1. And these are on our like terms. So now I'm going to go ahead and just write my final answer as I combine my like terms. So I have 5x squared minus 2x squared. This is going to give me 3x squared. And then this 3x here, remember that I want to write this in standard form. Because I want to go ahead and write this in standard form, guys, without having to go back and do it again because I'm running out of space. Matter of fact, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put it over here to the right. So we got negative 8 minus 1. Remember, two negatives when I subtract just to make it a bigger negative. So this would be a negative 9. And to double check, you type it in the calculator. And then finally, I didn't do anything with this 3x. I just got to bring it down. So this would be plus 3x. So remember that everything has to be written in standard form. So I'm going to actually write it over here to the right. To write it in standard form, remember I have to go from highest to lowest exponent. So this is to the second power. Remember that this is a power of 1 if it's nothing there. And again, I done overloaded the PowerPoint slides. That's funny. Okay, so again, make sure that you guys take this out. Go ahead and pause the video at this time to copy down the first one if you haven't gotten it. And then I'm going to go ahead and complete the second problem. But again, remember to take out or slash out or put an X through the rules and write the new one, which says distribute a negative, then combine like terms. So the last thing that we have to do here is to write it in standard form. So we got 3x squared minus 9 plus 3x. So remember that standard form, you guys have to go from highest to lowest exponent. And so 3x squared is the first. Then we need to go to the first power, which is going to be plus 3x. And again, if you need to put a 1 there, that's fine. So this would be plus 3x. And if you want to put the first power there, you can. And then finally, we're going to go to the 0 power, which is our constant, which is minus 9. So here's the final answer for this question on the foldable. Pause the video at this time, again, to go ahead and copy this down. And you guys can also go back to the slide or go back to get the steps where I distribute the negative and then combine like terms. Okay, so now we're back to the graphic organizer. So when we initially talked about the vocabulary for polynomials, you guys were given a graphic organizer. And then at the very bottom right-hand side, we never did it. And it should say add and subtracting polynomials. So at the top, you guys are going to fill in the blanks here. For adding, the rule says combine like terms. For subtracting, it just says distribute a negative and then combine like terms. So here's the very first example. We have y 4y to the third minus 5y squared plus 12y to the fifth minus 2y to the third plus 12y squared. and we're about to go through the process again with adding polynomials. So with adding polynomials, all you guys are doing is combining like terms. So the first thing I would do is use shapes to define which ones are your like terms. So we got 4y to the third here. We got negative 2y to the third. That's one set of like terms. And then I guess I can use a circle for this one. We have 5y squared, negative 5y squared, and then we had 12y squared. So I just identified all my like terms. Now from here, I'm just going to combine them. So 4y to the third minus 2y to the third is going to give me 2y to the third power. Negative 5y squared plus 14y squared is going to give me 9y to the second power. And then I didn't do anything to this 12y to the fifth, so I'm just bringing it down because I can't make it disappear. Now, the very last thing that you guys will have to do is put this in standard form. Okay, so in standard form, this is your final answer, which is 12y to the fifth plus 2y to the third plus 9y squared. So once you have combined like terms and wrote it in standard form, then you are 100% finished. Go ahead and pause the video at this time to copy this down on your graphic organizer.